really ensuring that you're saving enough for longevity, because typically we do live longer, and being wise with your money and investing and not putting it in cash.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough. And statistically, women are more apt to just be safe and not invest. At least that's statistically what I've read. I don't know that really plays the part in real life, because I know women do invest, but just socking it away in a cash account, that is negative cash flowing. Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast, where we believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I am your host, Shauna Theriel, guiding you to financial freedom. Today is my co-host, Missy Beach.
Hey, Shauna.
Good morning.
How are you?
Wonderful. So I guess we did a pretty good job, since they're letting us do it again, right?
We're back.
And I love this topic. We talked about what we wanted to do today, and it's really helping women get to financial freedom and giving them tips and things like that. Both of us are certified financial planners and CDFAs, divorce financial analysts. So we do help a lot of women in our careers.
Yeah, I feel like somehow women just end up in our office
They
and always have unique needs that differ a little bit from men. There's always the basic needs that everybody has, but women have a unique twist.
They do. There's a lot of uniqueness to it. And I feel like recently we've had widows come in. That always breaks my heart. It's honestly the saddest, but the best part of my job is being able to take their hand and being like, I've got you.
Exactly.
I can handle at least the financial part, right? We can't fix the other things, but just walking them through that. And then the divorcees coming in as well, unfortunately. I've seen that more and more.
It's like wildfire. I mean, they're just one after another.
And it seems like the kids are going to college and then the divorce is happening.
Oh, yeah. And I think we're both at that phase with kids going off to college. It's even more
hits
top
home.
of mind and hit. Yeah, you're right. Because we're like, wow, this is our peer group. And there's so many women our age that are in our shoes, but yet now suddenly faced to fend for themselves.
Right. Or figure out, okay, here is where I'm starting from. What does this look like? What do I need to make? I'll be honest. I feel like a lot of women do have a financial astute. It was years ago when we first started. So we've been in the business for a really long time together, and we started, way back when, 20 plus years ago, and we were just having babies.
I know.
And now we both on the same day took our kids to college.
I know.
That's
we did it.
Sweet. I know.
Props.
I know. It's so sweet. But I feel like the women coming in they're playing bigger role in finances, which is so smart.
Yeah, because they're getting bigger jobs, they're earning more.
Right.
But yet on the flip side, there's our peers that have been the ones that have manned the fort and, gotten the family where they needed to be, and the carpool mom and the cook and everything. And so those women are the ones that totally beat themselves up. And I just want to shake them and say, you don't have to know everything about finance.
No.
It's not your job. So don't, run yourself ragged and beat yourself up thinking why do I not know this? Why did I stay in the dark these 20 some years of marriage?
Right.
It's not anything they did wrong necessarily.
And there's a lot to learn, but they can completely learn it. You just need to know what pieces you need to know. You don't know to know everything.
Ding, 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 Shauna. That's it. They feel like they need to know everything.
Right.
And you're right. We parcel out for them the basics that they need to know. And I always say, hey, we'll teach you as much as you want to know, but you don't have to be an expert on derivatives and options and all kinds of crazy things.
I'm not an expert on that stuff, and I'm in finance.
Am I. Your basics of where your accounts are, what they do, the tax nature.
Where to take money from.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And why you have them. So
exactly.
That's all you need to know.
Right. And that's why you should definitely go to a trusted advisor, especially if you don't have that background. So someone that will sit down with you, talk about these things, go into it all with you, hold your hand, so to speak. Not that you need hold handing, because women are, very strong in nature. we carry, men too, but women carry a lot on their backs with trying to be a wife, mother, be it all to everyone, and usually put themselves on the back burner. And so, definitely coming to see an advisor to be able to help you with that, one you trust, is extremely important.
Trust is the key, because I feel like lately we've had a lot of women coming to us that have been burned by a prior advisor. Michaela and I are working with one now. Such a nice woman, very smart woman, but she was put into 4 really bad annuities by a prior advisor, and annuities that had gotten rolled over to more annuities and just churned for commission purposes.
Right. And with no planning, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. 0 planning. And like, we're just like going through the thought process and trying to figure out this guy's mind. Like, what was his rationale for even rolling into the new product? And there's really little that we can come up with. Product. Yeah.
Being the key word.
And so when you talk to the client, we have to be very sensitive, because she's not an investment professional. She didn't know what she was getting into. In her defense, she was just telling this salesperson, I need income and I'm afraid to lose money.
Right.
So that's why he put her in those products. So now it's just kind of unwinding that and finding the best path forward and demonstrating to her that she can trust us because we are fee only and we are not selling her anything.
100%. And teaching her the other pieces. So, and we'll get into a couple of these, but the pieces of the pie, it's not just investing. You have to look at the whole picture. Now, investing is an important piece of it. Mm-hmm. Ladies, it's a very important piece. And there were some stats here about investing.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be really good so nearly 70% of women said they'd never met with a financial advisor, compared to 41% of men. Okay.
I think some men are lying there. I don't think 41% have never met in the male side of things. Yeah. I think some men are lying. I bet it's higher than that.
Maybe.
But you can see the disparity between men and women.
57% of women don't have an emergency fund. Okay. Ooh. And we'll talk about that and set aside cash. 7 in 10 women wish they'd started investing sooner rather than later. I know I saw another stat on here. It was this is the starting investing. Average woman keeps 70 cents of every dollar in cash versus investing. And so investing is a very important piece of the pie, but it is just a piece. You have to have all the other pieces, the cash flow, the savings, the investing. Where am I pulling from? Do I have enough for retirement? Do I have my risks covered with insurance? How is my estate plan looking if something happens to me, either when I pass away or who's going to help me when I'm alive?
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the unique challenges women face is the living longer than men.
Oh, that's huge. Here's the stat on that. The average life expectancy for women, just in general in the U.S., is 73.8 years versus 68.4 years for men.
Don't you feel like that's gone down?
Okay, yeah, that's low. So that's for the population in general. But then I looked it up for higher earners, which is more kind of the wiser demographic, and, ruling out, your factory workers and your farm laborers and taking that element out. And then it goes up about 15 years for men. So then you're in your low 80s, and women goes up another 10 years. So they're also, around age 83 too. So then we're looking more realistic. If your average is around 83 for both men and women, that's why we plan out to age 95.
Right.
Because statistically, there is a chance.
Right. Completely. And so, we do build out to age 95. And so, what happens when, if you think about a woman living longer and, husband passes away first and they haven't handled the finances, or in the case of divorce, maybe they haven't handled the finances. And I do feel like, I feel like different demographics coming in, women are playing a bigger role in that, which is great. But there are still many families that come in where, the husband or, the male leads the charge on that. And, if something happens to them, they have to take over.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think about my own parents who are wiser clients. My dad's 82. My mother's 80. My mother does like the regular bill pay, but my dad handles like the big meaty decisions. And so if anything happened to my dad first, my mother would be like a deer in headlights. And I'm sure vice versa, something happened to my mother first, my dad would have no clue what monthly bills come in, credit card bills and utilities and things like that. So I think in most households, there's that division of labor.
Right.
Where spouses are not sharing. And typically it's the wife who is not being clued in on the family finances, either by choice or it's just kind of evolved that way over time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's a key thing. A lot of times it's not intentional, but it's just kind of division of labor.
Right. Right. Because you could kind of split up the duties, Yeah. That's the way it is in our house too. But the husbands help with the kids too and the dinner and, but then the woman helps with finances. So it is a division. You can't do it all.
No, divide and conquer.
Right.
Are you curious why annuities keep coming up as a potential investment option? People are often told that annuities can effectively mitigate investment risks and help secure their financial future. However, annuities often benefit the salesperson and might not be the best choice for you as a consumer. To learn more about the various types of annuities, the negatives of owning them, and better investment alternatives, we have a free ebook on our website just for you. To download our ebook, Buyer Beware, Why Do They Keep Trying to Sell You That Annuity? Simply click the link in the episode notes or visit wiserinvestor.com/guides. Now let's get back to the episode.
Other unique challenges that women face. How about like when people get divorced, seems like all the grunt work falls on the mom.
It does.
And I'm thinking about these kids going off to college. Somehow it's always the mom doing like all the college dorm shopping, all the move-in, all the forms to get the kids registered and the immunization form and the on-campus parking and all that falls on the mom's shoulders. It's very rare for the dad to be doing that.
It does. Well, even if they're younger, the sports and the coordination and the sports today with kids, the travel and paying for that's extremely expensive.
Oh, another consideration is financially when a divorce happens is typically in the divorce decree. Once the child is 18, there's nothing in the decree about who's paying for what in college, like for extracurriculars or car expense or gas or fraternity dues, sorority dues. And so I feel like a lot of my female clients end up being the ones to, be on the hook, foot the bill.
Yeah.
And so the dads just don't realize how much the moms are forking out of their pockets, which are minimal, because here's another stat. Women's finances decrease 41% after divorce. Yeah. And that's more than twice as much as men's finances decrease.
Right.
So they're starting at a lower starting place than men are after divorce, trying to climb out, but yet they're trying to do everything for the kids to maintain what they had pre-divorce.
Well, and I think that, just the heart, and I'm not saying men aren't this way either, so please hear my heart on that, but just the heart of a mom and trying to make them feel like everything's okay and
nothing changed.
Right. Even though we're going through a divorce, I feel like, especially if you are the primary caretaker for the child, even if they're at college, you're still like the primary, emotional support, if you will. I feel like that too. And, the goal is I'm just going to get them through college and do all this and then worry about me.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot.
We do.
And so I may be overspending right now, but I'm going to fix that later. Well, sometimes that's challenging because time
Exactly. The runway
time.
is so short to make up any overspending.
And then women making less in the workforce in general, even if we are trained the same or the same designations or as our male counterparts, we make percentages lower than men in the workplace. I feel like that was changing for a while. And I even looked at the statistics on that. It was changing for a while. And then it leveled out again, meaning the disparity was growing shorter, but now it's back to it's not changing any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so we're living longer, we're not making as much. And sometimes in those divorce situations, we divide. Many times the wife does receive the home, especially if there's children, and that could be an equitable division, but that doesn't help you with cash flow.
No, that's not always a good thing. And that's the biggest thing, women coming out of divorce. I feel like they always anchor on that because you're right. They want that consistency for the family. But depending on the age of the kids, I really encourage my divorce clients to try to let go of that as much as they can and get their equity out into something smaller, more affordable, and also to just get rid of the baggage of, that
Do you really want to see that house every day?
Ugh. Yeah. And I feel like it's more empowering for them when they start fresh.
Sure.
So if the plan allows for it, a lot of times that's going to be the better decision.
Absolutely. Well, and I know we've talked a lot about divorced women, and there's other shows that we can look at that I know you have done other shows on divorce that have been extremely helpful. But really looking at just longevity in general, let's say you're not divorced. Statistically, you're going to live longer than your husband. What does that look like? And so we want to make sure that, in younger years, that if something were to happen, if one of the two, could be the female, is the primary earner, that there is enough life insurance to cover if something were to happen, especially to the primary earner. And hopefully it would cover, any debt, college expenses, et cetera, with a term life insurance. I don't like annuities or whole life policies, term life insurance, until you get to the point where your wealth is created and you're closer to being retirable and the kids are through school and you've gotten them through all those expenses you were describing, then maybe you don't need that term insurance any longer. But making sure you have enough for planning in that you don't have a life change. And, it's also looking at, the cash flow, looking at where everything's going to come from. And so, we do see, maybe not necessarily the wiser base, but if you're spending right at your max, your whole marriage, that doesn't leave a lot of leeway for any hiccups in retirement, And so spending and cash flow matters. And so understanding, a lot of times women are the spenders in the family, not saying we overspend, but we manage all the things you were talking about. Mm-hmm. So really ensuring that you're saving enough for longevity, because typically we do live longer, and being wise with your money and investing and not putting it in cash.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough. And statistically, women are more apt to just be safe and not invest, at least that's statistically what I've read. I don't know that really plays the part in real life, because I know women do invest, but, just socking it away in a cash account, that is negative cash flowing for the most part.
So what was that statistic? 70% of every dollar is in cash.
It's in cash.
Okay. So first of all, good having an emergency fund.
Absolutely.
You want 6 months of living expenses in liquid cash. Hey, but not at your local bank. No. Because they're then lending out your cash to some sucker for, 9-10% for some big loan. They're paying you 0.01%. So stick that emergency fund in a high yield savings account online with an online bank, full FDIC protection, just like your brick and mortar bank. But back to what we were just talking about, that 70% of your investment dollars in cash.
Right.
You're lagging. You're falling behind the race.
Inflation. So if you're earning that percentage you're talking, and the high yield checking, you get anywhere between 4 and 5 right now. But if it's just in liquid cash, inflation alone is eating away at that.
And that's the fallacy that some clients are falling into these days. They're like, oh, cash, I can earn between 4 and 5. Why don't we just set it all there? Because who knows what the market's going to do, Shauna?
Well, but what is the Fed talking about? They're talking about cutting rates again.
Yep.
And so what happens in that bank account is your rates go down with that. Your interest rate goes down with that. So it's being prudent. And, if you haven't started investing, go to an advisor, like I said, but also, just thinking about, okay, having your emergency fund, having what do you need to spend, if anything, over the next couple, 3 years, what do you need to spend maybe for college, maybe for these incidentals we're talking about, where is your income covering your expenses? Cut it back if it's not. But it may be for a little, if there could be a couple years in college where it's not, and that's planned, and then anything beyond that, high quality stocks.
Yeah.
So,
funds, ETFs.
Correct.
Is what Sean is
correct.
saying,
Right. You don't want to be a stock picker. S&P 500, there's nothing wrong with that. Exactly. The other unique challenges is just estate planning with women, because we do live longer, and making sure your estate plan is buttoned up, having your will. Your will is going to name, if you have young children, who is going to take those young children or take care of them if something happens to you and you pass away, where are your assets going to flow? And this is important for even, married couples, because we see this so many times where you may not have wills. The courts are going to dictate where your children go, number one. But number two, husband passes away. There's no will in place. It's in a brokerage account or bank account, and it's not a joint account. Let's say it's an individual name. There's no will. The courts decide where those assets go. And I know in the state of Georgia, it is split evenly between the spouse and the children. So what does that mean? If you have 3 children and your spouse passes away and there's no will, that means a fourth gets split between you all. Now, there is another rule that says the spouse can get no less than 50%. So it would be 50% and then split between the kids for the other half. That being said, though, that could leave you in a really financial bind, especially depending on how many assets you have.
Yeah, because you were not ready to give away that spousal money to the next generation.
Exactly.
Obviously, that's really not most people's plan.
Right. Exactly. So it's, even if you're young and you think, oh, it can't happen to me, definitely, think about that. But having a will in place, and then the powers of attorney.
Oh, huge. Yeah, because you're more likely to become incapacitated than die prematurely.
Right.
So that healthcare directive, because if you're in the hospital in a coma, your loved ones, like your adult kids, you don't want to put that pressure on them to make life decisions for you. So spell it out in a document.
Right. Especially if they're feeling like, what would mom want? And, it's hard.
Yeah.
In those situations. Financial power of attorney is the other huge one, especially if it's just you and your spouse is gone.
Yeah.
A lot of times this is who can take over your finances if you can't, but you're still alive, and a lot of times you can name a sibling, you can name your grown children. And I know many times our clients that are single, or maybe the husband is not well and incapacitated, and maybe the wife hasn't done a ton with finances. They may start bringing grown children into the situation and meeting with the advisor, so that they know what's going on. And if, dad passes and mom becomes incapacitated, then the financial power of attorney can step in because they understand what's going on.
Absolutely. And some female clients with 20-some, 30-some-year-old kids like to include those in the mix.
Right.
Just because they feel like, I want my younger kids to be in there too.
Right.
The other important thing with the financial power of attorney, it can be either durable or springing. And so I think it's just better to be durable, which means it's in place from day one.
Right.
You don't need a doctor's or two doctors' opinion to say that, okay, you're incapacitated and now the financial power of attorney is in effect.
Well, and do you know what I've seen so many times of that you bring that up? I have seen so many times that usually it's to protect yourself from yourself, because when we become incapacitated, a lot of times it's not like you're in the hospital and that's what it is. Sometimes it's you're having memory issues.
Yes.
That happens a lot now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start having memory issues, I've seen this so many times where it's like, well, I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I don't need to go to a doctor. I don't need, they start bucking like they don't think anything's wrong.
Indignant.
Correct. So you can't get those doctor's notes. I don't need any help. I can handle my finances, And so I agree with you completely. And usually we trust our children to just be immediate powers, And one of the things, women say is they don't ever want to be a burden to their children.
Exactly. And that's one way to help the whole situation is just get them on the books from day one with that power of attorney.
Right. So it's really making sure that, in totality, that you have your estate plan set up, you have, insurance if needed during certain times of life. If something unexpected were to happen, it's understanding and investing your funds wisely that makes sense for you. And, we're going to go through things in our life that we don't plan for. Actually, I think most of life is, what is the saying? We're either in a storm, coming out of a storm, or heading towards a storm.
Yes.
Right. So we can't plan for everything and we can't control everything around us. But what we can control is, the plan that we have in place to follow as best as we can and make adjustments and be flexible for yourself. And have others around you to help support you in those financial needs to help understanding and bring it all together.
Absolutely, Shauna.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Well, if you have, in the notes, we have a couple of other podcasts you can listen to if you're interested. Episode 146, The Power of Life Insurance to Meet Your Family's Goals. And that goes right back to the term policies we were talking about. Episode 120, Finding the Right Estate Planning Attorney for You. Episode 118, What to Look for in a Financial Advisor. We have a couple YouTube videos as well in the notes. Financial planning tips to thrive in your 40s. And should I hire a financial advisor or do it yourself? We get that question often. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in learning more about what Wiser Wealth Management is or want to schedule a consultation to meet with one of us, financial advisors, you can do so by going to wiserinvestor.com or you can click the link in the episode notes. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to a Wiser Retirement podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you don't miss any new episodes. We'd also appreciate if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out. This episode was produced by Rachel Dotson. This podcast is strictly for informational purposes only and is not to be considered as investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell any financial products, securities, digital assets, or any other investment vehicles, or a basis to make any financial decisions. Wiser Wealth Management Incorporated is a registered investor advisor with the SEC. The host and/or guests may personally own securities, digital assets, or other investment vehicles mentioned on this podcast. Neither the host nor guests of the show are compensated for their participation, and no referral fees are paid to or received by any host or guest for clients, listeners, or similar interests. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, insurance professional, and/or legal professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.